that's your little introduction. So now I want to talk to you about how well, I should say, Jeanne, translated the idea of the Cadillac Ranch into yarn, and she sent us a wonderful video. So before I introduce her in person, we're going to show her video. Maybe. There we go. Let's try. Oops. Sorry. There we go.
Hi, I'm Jeanne Stevenson. I am the owner and dyer and creative head and everything person at Destination Yarn, where I create hand-dyed yarn inspired by travel and places and the world all around. And I was your most recent dyer for your subscription box. So I thought it would be fun to kind of go through where I dye the yarn and some of the other things I do during the year, and then maybe take you through the creative process that I went through to get to your skeins.
This is my dye studio. I dye out of a storefront dye space in the West Park neighborhood of Cleveland, Ohio. I do have a small retail area, but most of it is working space. You can see I have my dye pans and my sink and all of my equipment out. But there is some retail and there is some shopping available. Everything is done here in-house, from shipping to winding to dyeing, just absolutely everything. And since I'm on my own, I don't keep regular shop hours, but if you are ever in the neighborhood, please feel free to reach out because I am open by appointment. So the front of my storefront is my drying rack. So there's always something interesting on display, something colorful in my front windows, always something new depending on what I'm working on. Even sometimes some mohair and some silk and some fun things like that. I am also the everything person. Here I am packaging up a bunch of orders from a pre-order event that I did this summer. So getting those all out to you. And then here I am winding up yarn. This is actually the Northern Lights colorway, which is currently available for pre-order. And here I am reorganizing and unpacking after a trunk show and setting my drying racks back up after I returned from an event. It's always, a process to get the studio back to right after I'm on the road. It's a lot of work, but I really love my job, so it's a lot of fun. One of my absolute favorite things to do is be on the road for shows and events. This is my booth at the Great Lakes Fiber Show, which is a more local to Ohio event. It's Memorial Day weekend. I will be back this year. This was from my booth at the Yarn Centric event in Maryland. And I will be returning to that as well. Also coming up, I will be at YarnCon in Chicago. So here I am at one of my events. So yeah, that's me.
So for your box, this was the picture that I received as inspiration of Cadillac Ranch. And so I really wanted to capture the idea of all that spray paint, all of those layers of color on top of each other, overlapping and creating different colors along the way. So you know what the final skeins look like. But on the way to that, there were some test skeins, and I thought it'd be kind of neat to show you guys those and what the process was like. So the first skeins that I dyed, I knew I wanted to get, again, that overlapping colors. So I just kind of started with some like bright colors and I splashed them in the dye pans in a very random way, which was the dye technique that I ended up using in the end. But on the way, I dyed this one and this one, which it wasn't gritty enough. It just didn't quite capture that overlapping image, and it was too heavy on this bright blue, which I know you guys have had blue in the past, so I was trying to get away from that, do something completely different. So these went in the test pile bin. So from there, I decided that I was going to take out the blue and start with like a brown undercolor. And I ended up with this, and I didn't like this very much. It's very fun, but tropical feeling and not that overlapping gritty spray paint feeling. So these were the next skeins. So at that point, I was a little bit frustrated. And so I kind of pivoted away. Sometimes when the creative process isn't always a straight line for me. So I kind of pivoted away and decided to work on the coordinating color that was going to go with it. So from there, I dyed these. Now this is very close to the spray paint color that you got. You can see the speckles that are in there are the same color speckles that are ended up on your skeins, but I decided this was a little too light. So I darkened that color deep into the gray, added a little blue to the gray so it's not such a warm gray, and added all of the speckles on that match these. I actually really like this color. I think this is very cool, and this may come out as something else. Once I had dyed that tonal, it locked in exactly what I wanted to do for the Cadillac Ranch color, and I was able to create it from there. That's me. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed working on this. These were super fun colorways to dye. It was a really fun collaboration to be a part of. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook as Destination Yarn. I'm at Destination Yarn, both those places. My website is destinationyarn.com. That's where all of my yarn will be. And you can use hashtag Destination Yarn on Instagram to see a whole bunch of projects that other people have made with my yarn and to share your projects as well. So thanks so much.
Love that. Love hearing all how to, the creative process for figuring out the color. I think is fascinating. Fascinating. Okay. So there's Jeanne. Welcome, welcome.
Hello. How's it going?
Thanks for coming.
Oh, of course. Yeah, happy to be here.
We are just delighted to have you part of this project. Loved what you came up with. When I opened the box, I gasped.
Me too.
Like, wow.
We were really excited to get it.
Yeah.
So that's so fun.
And that it matched, that you went for that grittiness and you achieved it. I just thought was so cool. So cool. So just a few questions to get everybody to know you a little better. And if you come up with other questions, people who are watching, throw them into the chat and we'll see if we can get to those too. But tell us a little bit about your story, because I have read it and I think it's fascinating how you got into dyeing yarn.
Sure. So I was an avid knitter, knit all the way growing up. My grandma taught me when I was young, and got kind of really into it after college when I had free time again. So I went to college. I was an architect, and I was working as an architect. And basically what happened was in 2009, all the architecture jobs went away, including mine. So my company way downsized while I was on maternity leave with my first. So it was kind of a challenging time. But I kind of got into dyeing yarn before that. And I had people asking, for the yarn that I had dyed before that. And I decided then to, really push it and really make it work. So I could be home with my daughter. And so I could, kind of build my business in the margins. And I did over the last, it's been almost 15 years now. My daughter's 14. She's turning 14 in a couple of weeks. So, and, over that time, I've really kind of built my business to my full-time job, which is kind of neat because it started from that place. So yeah, but I was an architect and I always loved travel and places. And so I on this trip that we took to Peru before we had kids, before we had anything, I was knitting a sock on this train through the Andes. And I remember thinking, I want the colors that are out this window that are just absolutely gorgeous to be on my yarn. I want this here. So that's how I kind of started creating and started dyeing yarn, just to play with color that way and to create colors that way. So that was kind of always in my headspace for how I wanted to work. So, and I still do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's what I think you're so talented at is not only capturing colors from a photograph, but feel.
Yeah. And I really try and capture the whole feel of the place, not just one inspiration image, but you go through lots of images and then you realize that Cadillac Ranch is not just bright colors. It's very tactile. I don't know. So that's really what I try and get to. So yeah.
Cool. So how does your background as an architect influence the yarn you create?
So I'm always kind of thinking in 3 dimensions about it, as far as how this skein is going to look worked up and how it's going to look up worked up different ways, both, because crochet kind of stacks stitches, whereas knitting, you get a little bit different run. Forever ago, when I started, I would like map out, because it was a lot of hand paints when, that's not as popular of a dye style anymore. But I used to like map out, okay, if I put this here, when you knit a sock, how does that work? So I thought that was kind of fun, way back then. But now I do a lot more like splashy and speckles and things like that. But it's always still in my brain, like, what is the three-dimensional object going to be out of this yarn? So
Yeah, that is fascinating because there is a lot of yarn out there that looks beautiful in a skein, and then not so much when you knit it up. It's like, yeah, maybe I should have just left it in a bowl on my dining room table, which I highly recommend. But it is nice to have that idea of thinking forward, like, what is this going to look like, when it becomes a garment, something to wear. So we got a question from one of our groupies, and they wanted to know, what is your favorite dyeing technique? Like, you talked a little bit about splashes. Do you like speckles? Do you like
so it kind of depends on what I'm trying to get to. So like, I've kind of done it all. I've done like straight hand paint where you're like real rigid with where you put the color. I've done like splashes, which are a lot more random. I've done the kettle dye where you like let things bleed, and speckles. Like, there's all different techniques. I think my favorite thing to do is layers anytime you're putting color on top of color, because you're going to get a third color. So dye is like watercolor. Like, there's you can always see what's underneath. So if you start with like, you dye the yarn yellow and then you put blue over that, you're going to get green yarn. Like, there's always going to be something in between. You're always going to be able to see what's underneath. So I think that's when the most complex and interesting colorways come about, is when I really am layering things and putting things on top of things and letting things kind of meld and play in the dye pans. So yeah.
What are some things that don't, that haven't worked? Like, are there colors that you just have learned, yeah, don't put these two together because this is, in my mind it's beautiful, but on the yarn it doesn't work?
I always struggle with yellow. Like, yellow is always my nemesis as far as like getting it to not be harsh. Like, yellow can go so harsh so quickly. So to get like a really like warm yellow is always a struggle for me. And I think I finally really got it with, I released a holiday collection, and I had a color that was candlelight, that was like a really warm, kind of almost like, I started by dyeing it brown and then like added the yellow on top. That color has gone sideways for me a bunch of times, but I think I finally got there. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So what are your favorite things? Are you a knitter or crocheter, or both?
I'm a knitter. I have crocheted. I'm not very good at crochet, but I'm a knitter basically. So yeah.
What's your favorite
Yeah.
thing to
Right now, I have 3 kids now, and they're all like going in different directions. So I feel like I don't have proper headspace for like complicated projects right now. I always mess them up, at least right now. I will go back to that. I have knit very complicated things in the past, but it's just not the season for me with that right now. So I've been just doing a lot of socks and hats. And socks are so portable and so fun. And everybody I've ever given a sock to has loved it. So, or a pair of socks too. So that seems to be my go-to. I just kind of always have some socks going. So yeah.
I think, yeah, I always have a pair of socks going too, because then, and vanilla socks, like when
Yep.
I do socks, it's like plain, as plain as maybe ribs, maybe I put ribs in them. But if you have beautiful yarn, that's all you need is beautiful yarn.
And you don't have to think. And if like you have to put it down because somebody came out of their practice and got in the car 10 minutes early, like, you're fine. Or if they're 10 minutes late, you're fine. You can start and stop. Yeah. Because that's,
Okay,
that's
so
my life right now.
all sock knitters have a preference. Do you do magic loop, 2 circulars, or double points?
I do wood double points for around. And I'm very specific. Like, that's how I like to knit socks. I tried the tiny circulars.
Team double points.
Yeah. And not 2 at a time. Oh my gosh, that blows my mind when people do that.
No.
Top down.
I usually do top down. Yep.
The traditional, I
Yep.
think. Maybe it's not. I mean, maybe hundreds of years ago they made socks from the toes up. I don't know. Yeah, somebody said, oh yeah, now I want candlelight yarn. Right. Made that sound lovely. And it is. It's hard. Yellows are hard. Yellows are really hard to get.
They can just get really brassy and harsh very easily. So
Did you have a chance to gather any things to show, any projects to show us, or?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm wearing a Gansevoort, is the name of the sweater. So that's kind of fun. And it's like, it's knit on the bias
Ooh,
by
cool.
Kathleen Dames. So I've got that on, which is kind of fun. And this is the Manhattan Cityscape colorway and the Bordeaux colorway. And yeah, the Manhattan Cityscape. So Gansevoort is a place in Manhattan where like the buildings line up. So yeah, with the if you read the description on the Ravelry page, she explains it all, but the angles work with that. So
Oh, cool.
I have that on. What else can I show you guys? Give me 1 second.
Right.
All my samples right behind me here. Yes.
Love how your
Uh,
sweater
sorry.
destination also.
And I've got, let's see. Oh, this is really fun. I really like this sweater. I'll show you guys this. This was a tin can knit sweater that my mom knit. So my mom over the pandemic decided to let her hair go gray. She had been dyeing it brown, like a reddish brown for years. And so she decided that she needed some new clothes to go with her new gray hair. And she knit this sweater. It's a tin can knits pattern and it's out of my Italy collection. So it's the terracotta colorway. And then it's like, she never wore this color blue, and it's Mediterranean and Amalfi Coast are the two colors in there. And it was her first steeked sweater and she absolutely loved it. She wears it all the time. She helps out in the studio sometimes. So it was only here because she was just here and had it on. So yeah, and that was the Italy collection colors. Isn't that pretty?
So,
Yes.
yeah.
And it looks great with her hair. So yeah. Let's see, what else do I have? And then this I grabbed, this is the toasted marshmallow shawl. And it's out of the what colors are these? This is the Golden Gate colorway after the Golden Gate Bridge and Coastal Fog, which is kind of neat. And that's a crochet project that I have.
Cool.
So yeah.
Yay for the crocheters.
Yeah, a couple of projects there.
Love that. All right. So are there any groupies, you got any questions you want to throw in the chat before we let Jeanne get back to her family and her weekend?
Sorry.
Yeah, we just got lots of love and beautiful and gorgeous and fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Jeanne. I really appreciate you dropping in. We love what you created
Absolutely.
for us, and the video that you made was fabulous. And it's just such fun to talk to you. So really
Yes, thank you.
It was fun being here. Thanks so much.